Hello, my name is Marlene Alvarez. Today in my audience I have my little sister. My speech is called The Secrets Within a Home. A child named Maria was having a peaceful night's sleep when suddenly she heard loud banging in her parents' bedroom. The little girl, scared and unknowing of the situation, walks to their door only to see her stepfather inches and minutes away from striking her mother, who was now on the ground. Today, I will be informing you a little more about men and women who become victims of the abuse inflicted by their partners, specifically domestic abuse. I have done well enough research to find out much more about the percentage rates of domestic violence. Among my research, I also found reasons as to why men abuse their partners. Therefore, my speech will go over women that get abused, explain how men can also be victims, and wrap up on why domestic violence is a worldwide problem. First, I will talk about women becoming victims of domestic abuse. Women who struggle with domestic violence can experience long-term psychological problems in the long run. Many women stay in these states of relationships because they fear abandonment. This would be one of the many mental problems their partners may inflict on them. An article by Aswer Blatz states that women have a harder time maintaining/securing employment. Quote, according to estimates from the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, affected persons in the U.S. incur of loss of 8 million paid working days as well as 5.6 million working days in the home or family. Such unfitness for work leads to higher morbidity and therefore increased use of healthcare services. About 8.8% of women report their domestic injuries to hospitals, but those who don't tend to keep their silence because almost all of their self-esteem is gone. Women who lack self-esteem are manipulated by their abuser into thinking that they are the only ones there for them, putting in their head that they should worship the floor they walk on. Now, in other cases, it is simply very difficult for women to escape their abuser's hold for other reasons. For example, fear of being homeless, punished, or fearing that her next partner may inflict pain worse. This type of manipulation takes years to make a woman feel these fears. But people who are looking at this relationship from afar and know of the abuse simply assume that the women are stupid for not leaving, not truly grasping the deeper meaning to them staying. Although there are higher cases and reports of women suffering from domestic violence, men can also be victims of this abuse. Usually, men fear to report that they are being abused by their significant other because they fear no one will believe them, fear of embarrassment, or even someone invalidating their feelings. An article on domestic violence against men, prevalence rates, and risk factors states that domestic violence tendencies usually come from the results of how they were brought up as a child, mental disorders, or substance abuse. Quote, the described consequences of violence included in addition to physical injuries are a total of 2.5-fold reduction in well-being as well as in 24.2% of cases, such as anxiety or other mood disorders come to be 13.6% and 8%. Disruptive disorders 11.2%, and raised alcohol consumption or substance misuse 7.1%. There was an experiment done from 2013 to 2018 that included about 867 people. 190 of these were men, and about 16 reported being abused by past relationships. Out of these men, 6 reported that their past partners had mental problems, substance abuse, and depression. In addition, domestic violence has become a worldwide problem. A 2018 prevalence rate by the World Health Organization states that from 2000 to 2018, worldwide nearly 1 in 3 or 30% of women have suffered from domestic abuse in the past. For most women, it becomes very difficult for them to leave their relationships because they believe it will stop or they find an easier way to make it stop. When they finally do find ways to leave, it usually ends in the hard way. Quote, this vicious cycle usually ends with the police and a restraining order. Then the law gets involved, and whatever unresolved feelings become even more polarized and acrimonious when one becomes a potential witness. The first line of defense is the law, but the police lack formal training in human relations. They are also there to control the situation, not to resolve it. Men and women get abused all over the world, and it isn't nearly addressed compared to regular violence. Most of the cases of domestic violence get brushed aside by those close to the victims because they define this as love and will disown the person if they leave their partner. Going back to the article, Domestic Violence Against Men, Prevalence Rates, and Risk Factors, it states that the men mainly reported having been struck open-handedly and scratched. In most cases, however, combinations of different methods of blunt force trauma were applied. 2 men reported being struck with items such as a barbell, a drum bell, and a shoehorn. In domestic violence cases involving men, they usually don't believe they can be abused because they're, quote, stronger, and, quote, how can a woman get advantage of you? These are insensitive comments that men have to endure while trying to report their abuse. In conclusion, now that you know the signs and rates of how domestic violence has become a worldwide problem, you may know the signs to help a woman who is trapped in a relationship they can't find a way to free themselves. Not only women, though, men can also get taken advantage of by women and get abused. We should stop stereotyping and saying that only women can become victims because men can as well. So many people see past the idea of domestic violence and refer to it just as any other violence. This is very small-minded because they don't take it as serious, even though it should be a bigger issue and talked about more. Now that you have all the knowledge and you can help someone who may need some helpful advice in their time of need. We should be bringing awareness to domestic violence towards men and women. Thank you.